Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. We are pleased to welcome you all sa press conference ng Philippine Statistics Authority para sa 2024 second quarter performance of the Philippine economy ngayong ika-8 ng Agosto 2020. Ako si 𝐏𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐬, ang inyong host para sa press briefing na ito. Para po sa ating guest is makibahagi sa talakayan, ang ating event ay naka-livestream sa PSA Facebook page at PSA YouTube channel Statistics Authority at �PSA_GOV_PH_. At ang mga updates naman ay posted sa PSA X, formerly Twitter account, gamit ang #PHGDP. Kaugnay nito, upang ibahagi ang mahahalagang impormasyon o updates sa ating ekonomiya, ikinararangal ko pong ipakilala ang ating mga resource persons para sa press conference ng 2024 second quarter performance of the Philippine economy. Sila ay sina Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan ng National Economic and Development Authority at si National Statistician and Civil Registrar General Undersecretary Claire Dennis S. Mapa ng Philippine Statistics Authority. Nais din po naming kilalanin ang presensya ng iba pang mga opisyal ng NEDA at PSA na kasama po natin ngayon both on-site at virtually. Mula sa NEDA, kasama po natin ngayon sina Director Desiree Narvaez, Director Danilo Lorenzo Atanasio, at OIC Director Francis Fatima Cabana. At mula po sa PSA, kasama natin ngayon ang Deputy National Statistician ng Sectoral Statistics Office, si Dr. Divina Gracia Del Prado. Kasama rin po sina OIC Assistant National Statistician for Macroeconomic Account Service, Mr. Mark C. Pascasio, Assistant National Statistician for Social Sector Statistics Service, Mr. Adrian A. Cerezo, and OIC Assistant National Statistician for Economic Sector Statistics Service, Ms. Rachel C. Laksa. Ngayon, atin pong pakinggan ang ulat ni PSA Undersecretary Claire Dennis S. Mapa.
Magandang umaga sa ating lahat. Ang Philippine Statistics Authority mag-uulat ng estado ng ekonomiya ng bansa sa ikalawang quarter ng taong 2024. Ang Gross Domestic Product o GDP ng Pilipinas ay nagtala ng pagtaas na 6.3% sa ikalawang quarter ng taong 2024. Ito ay mula sa naitalang 4.3% na pagtaas sa parehong quarter noong nakalipas na taon. Ang Gross National Income o GNI ay nagtala ng pagtaas na 7.9% sa ikalawang quarter ng taong 2024. Gayun din, ang Net Primary Income from the rest of the world ay tumaas ng 24.7% sa ikalawang quarter ng taong 2024. Sa Seasonally Adjusted National Accounts sa ikalawang quarter ng taong 2024, ang GDP ay nagtala ng quarter-on-quarter na pagtaas na 0.5%. Sa kabilang dako, ang GNI ay nagtala ng 0.4% quarter-on-quarter na paglago sa parehas na period. Ang mga pangunahing sektor ng ekonomiya na industry at services ay nagsipagtala ng pagtaas na 7.7% at 6.8% respectively. Samantala, ang agriculture, forestry, and fishing ay nagtala ng pagbaba na 2.3%. Sa seasonal adjusted GDP, ang industry ay nagtala ng pinakamataas na paglago sa mga pangunahing sektor na may 1.5% sa quarter-on-quarter basis. Sinunod nito ng services na nagtala ng pagtaas na 0.3%. Samantala, ang agriculture, forestry, and fishing ay nagtala ng pagbaba na 1.6% sa quarter-on-quarter basis. Sa ikalawang quarter ng taong 2024, ang per capita GDP ay tumaas ng 5.4%. Ito ay mula sa pagtaas na 3.4% sa parehong quarter noong nakalipas na taon. Ang per capita GNI at per capita Household Final Consumption Expenditure ay parehong nakapagtala ng pagtaas na may 7.0% at 3.7% respectively. Sa naitalang pagtaas ng GDP na 6.3% sa ikalawang quarter ng taong 2024, Ang services ay nagtala ng may pinakamataas na kontribusyon na nasa 4.2 percentage points. Ito ay sinundan ng industry na nagtala ng contribution na 2.3 percentage points, habang ang agriculture, forestry, and fishing ay nakapag-ambag ng negative 0.2 percentage point sa kabuuang pagtaas ng GDP. Sa 16 na sektor ng GDP, ang construction ay nagtala ng pinakamataas na paglago na nasa 16.0% sa ikalawang quarter ng taong 2024. Ito ay sinundan ng mga sumusunod: transportation and storage na tumaas ng 14.8%, other services na tumaas ng 10.5%, at accommodation and food service activities na tumaas ng 10.4%. Ang mga sektor na may pinakamalaking kontribusyon sa pagtaas ng GDP sa ikalawang quarter ng taong 2024 ay ang mga sumusunod: construction na nag-ambag ng 1.3 percentage points, wholesale and retail trade, repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles na nag-ambag ng 1.0 percentage point, at financial and insurance activities na nag-ambag ng 0.8 percentage point. Sa demand side, ang gross fixed capital formation sa construction ay nagtala ng pinakamataas na paglago na nasa 16.1% sa ikalawang quarter ng taong 2024. Ito ay sinundan ng mga sumusunod: imports of services na tumaas ng 15.5%, government final consumption expenditure na tumaas ng 10.7%, at exports of services na tumaas ng 8.0%. Sa ikalawang quarter ng taong 2024, ang mga sektor na may pinakamalaking contribution sa pagtaas ng GDP sa expenditure side ay ang mga sumusunod: household final consumption expenditure na nag-ambag ng 3.2 percentage points, construction na nag-ambag ng 2.9 percentage points, at government final consumption expenditure na nag-ambag ng 1.7 percentage points. Ang Philippine Statistics Authority ay malugod na nagpapasalamat sa inyong pagdalo sa National Accounts Press Conference para sa ikalawang quarter ng taong 2024. Salamat at magandang umaga sa ating lahat.
Maraming salamat po, 𝐒𝐫𝐞𝐬𝐬, para sa ulat ng 2024 second quarter performance of the Philippine economy. Ngayon, atin naman pong pakinggan si NEDA Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan para sa pahayag niya ukol sa 2024 second quarter performance of the Philippine economy.
Members of the media, fellow Filipinos, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. Today, we are pleased to announce that the Philippine economy has sustained its robust growth trajectory, demonstrating resilience amid various domestic and external challenges. As reported by Undersecretary Dennis Mapa, our gross domestic product growth has accelerated to 6.3% in the second quarter, faster than the adjusted 5.8% growth rate recorded in the first quarter of 2024. This significant development brings our real GDP growth rate, or GDP growth, to 6.0% for the first half of the year, keeping us on track to achieve our target growth rate of 6 to 7% for 2024. This performance keeps our position as one of Asia's best performing major emerging economies. For East Asia's economies that have released their second quarter 2024 GDP growth, we follow behind Vietnam at 6.9%, while leading Malaysia at 5.8%, Indonesia at 5.0%, and China at 4.7%. Excuse me. Among the major economic sectors, industry and services posted year-on-year solid growth in the second quarter at 7.7% and 6.8% respectively. However, the agriculture sector experienced a year-on-year decline of 2.3%, with the sector adversely affected by the El Niño phenomenon. On the demand side, the acceleration in GDP growth was driven by a significant increase in total investment by 11.5%, fueled by robust construction activities. Public construction sustained double-digit growth at 20.8% from 12.1%, as the government's infrastructure agencies expedited the rollout of the Marcos administration's construction and rehabilitation projects. Encouragingly, private construction likewise accelerated to 9.9% from 5.3%, particularly commercial construction to 13.6% from 6.8%. Meanwhile, the notable increase in government final consumption expenditure by 10.7% was mainly driven by the timely implementation and expanded coverage programs of various social protection, health, and education programs, coupled with the preparatory activities for the 2025 national and local elections. The country's sustained and robust growth performance has led us to observe record employment numbers. Just yesterday, the Philippine Statistics Authority reported that the unemployment rate again reached 3.1% in June 2024, tying our record low in almost 2 decades as the total number of employed persons exceeded 50 million. We have also been observing a downward trend in underemployment, indicating the availability of better quality jobs for our people. In the previous month's report, the underemployment rate was estimated at 9.9% in May 2024, the lowest since 2005. It is also encouraging to see that economic growth is broadly inclusive. Our efforts to combat poverty have yielded significant results. As reported last month by the Philippine Statistics Authority, poverty fell from 18.1% in 2021 to 15.5% in 2023, translating into 2.45 million Filipinos lifted out of poverty. This accomplishment surpasses the Philippine Development Plan target of 16.0 to 16.4% for 2023, highlighting the effectiveness of our policy measures and the resilience of our economic strategies. Meanwhile, poor Filipinos decreased from 6.55 million in 2021 to 4.84 million in 2023, marking a reduction of 1.71 million individuals. Income growth for the poorest deciles, the bottom 20% of our population, was faster than those of the richer deciles and higher than the rate at which the poverty threshold increased owing to inflation between 2023 and 2021. While inflation was faster at 4.4% in July 2024, we expect it to revert to its longer-term downtrend as we aim for our target range of 2 to 4%. Year-to-date average inflation from January to July 2024 stands at 3.7%. While these numbers are encouraging, our growth performance could have been even more impactful on all Filipinos if not for the high inflation interest rates that the country experienced in the last 2 decades. Considering the lag effect of interest rate hikes that the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas carried out in response to the high inflation in 2022 and early 2023, we estimate that economic growth could have been over half a percentage point higher in 2023 if such hike rates did not materialize. More importantly, with slower increase in food prices, our efforts could have reduced the poverty incidence to around 13 to 14% in 2023, instead of the actual reported figure of 15.5% if inflation had been within target during the year. This would have translated to an even higher reduction in the number of poor people by 4.4 million instead of the reported or actual reported 2.5 million between 2021 and 2023. Therefore, as we continue to progress across various socioeconomic indicators, we focus on sustaining this momentum and ensuring that the benefits of economic growth are shared equitably. President Marcos began his 2024 State of the Nation address with one of our most urgent priorities. The government will continue its push for food security by managing food inflation with appropriate supply-side measures. In the near term, we commit to utilizing strategic trade policy to augment insufficient domestic food supply to meet rising demand. To protect our people from such economic shocks and sustain the momentum for poverty reduction, the government will likewise expedite the rollout of social protection programs for the poor and vulnerable sectors, including enhancements to the Department of Social Welfare and Development's Food Stamp Program and the 4-Piece Program. The accelerated implementation of the national ID use cases will be instrumental in this endeavor. As we have also said, the government's medium-term game plan is to implement strategic policies and programs focused on raising agricultural productivity and improving farmers' incomes and competitiveness through a whole-of-government approach towards strengthening our infrastructure, logistics networks, and markets for agricultural inputs and outputs. The Marcos administration will fast-track digitalization to enhance data-driven decision-making and drive innovation among actors in the sector. And it commits to strengthening the country's disaster management to mitigate the impact of extreme weather, including the looming threat of La Niña on our people's lives and livelihoods. Keeping food inflation interest rates manageable is expected to spur both consumption and investment activity among households and businesses, strengthening our economic growth prospects in the coming months and the medium term. Improving Filipinos' purchasing power abilities also means that we will relentlessly pursue high-quality job creation, even as we are making steady progress in our employment statistics. The government is working earnestly to improve the policy and regulatory environment further. The goal is to strengthen our growth pillars beyond household consumption and the services sector, and foster a more diversified mix of industries to sustain the growth of the Philippine economy in the years to come, speeding up poverty reduction and socioeconomic transformation. To drive investment, we are advancing critical reforms to enhance the investment climate, transforming critical sectors such as energy, water, and telecommunications, and simplifying the ease of doing business. Implementing the PPP Code of the Philippines is expected to bolster and expand private sector participation in the country's infrastructure development. Through the infrastructure flagship projects, or IFPs, under the Build Better More program, we aim to create favorable conditions for business expansion, improve regional connectivity by linking leading and lagging areas, and elevate the competitiveness of our local industries. Equally important is our commitment to investing in human capital. While physical infrastructure development is essential, addressing the long-neglected social sectors, particularly health, education, and social protection, is imperative. Strengthening these areas will enable us to harness and fully reap the benefits of demographic dividend as we expect more and more Filipinos to join the labor force. We are developing the Trabajo para sa Bayan, or TPB plan, to address the employment challenges and align educational outcomes with market demands, empowering Filipinos to succeed in a dynamic environment. Together, these initiatives lay a strong foundation for sustainable and inclusive growth. Our goal is to drive substantial investments in both physical and human capital to generate more and better jobs, offering higher wages, enhance the competitiveness of our economy, and most importantly, reduce poverty to single-digit levels by 2028, a commitment that we intend to meet. Amid evolving risks and challenges, the Philippines' economic outlook remains promising in the near and medium term. By adhering to the Philippine Development Plan and learning from the lessons and experiences over the last 2 years, we will ensure that our strategies propel us in the right direction as we move closer to our vision of a strongly rooted, comfortable, and secure life for every Filipino. Thank you and good morning to all.
Maraming salamat po, Secretary Balisacan. Before we proceed to the open forum, we would like to acknowledge the presence of Undersecretary Mel Pana of the National Economic and Development Authority. Good morning, sir. Dumako na po tayo sa ating open forum. Bago natin ito simulan, nais po naming pasalamatan ang lahat ng media partners na kasama sa press briefing na ito. Para po sa maayos na pagsasagawa ng ating open forum ay narito ang ilang mga paalala. Para sa ating mga online participants, maaari po ninyong gamitin ang raise hand feature ng Zoom kung nais niyo pong direktang magtanong sa ating mga resource persons. Kapag kayo po ay natawag upang magtanong, pakisabi po muna ang inyong pangalan at ang organisasyong inyong kinabibilangan bago po ang inyong tanong. Maaari rin po kayong magpadala ng katanungan gamit ang chat box. Siguraduhin lamang po na nakalagay ang inyong pangalan at ang organisasyong inyong kinabibilangan. Panatilihin pong nakamute ang inyong mic kung kayo po ay hindi pa natatawag upang magtanong. Para naman po sa ating mga on-site participants, pakitaas lamang po ang inyong kamay kung kayo ay may katanungan at hintayin lamang po na kayo ay ma-acknowledge upang magtanong. Kapag kayo ay natawag upang magtanong, pakisabi po ulit ang inyong pangalan at ang organisasyong inyong kinabibilangan bago ang inyong tanong. Para sa kopya ng ating mga press kits, ipapadala po namin ito sa ating online media participants via email at ang printout ng ating press kits ay ibibigay po ng aming staff sa mga on-site media participants. Ngayon ay handa na po tayo sa ating open forum. May we ask our on-site participants for any questions for our resource persons? Yes, Ma'am Micah.
Good morning po, 𝐒𝐿𝐴�R from Manila Times. Regarding government spending lang po, since higher siya in the second quarter, how many percentage points po yung contribution niya during the period? Thank you po.
GFC contribution?
Yes.
4.5. Sa construction, public construction, dito sa gross capital formation, ang ating growth rate for public construction is about 21.8% at yung share niya ay nasa 54.5%. Yung as mentioned kanina by Secretary, ang private construction grew by 9.9% and the share is about 45.5%. Thank you.
In addition, the government final consumption expenditure grew at or contributed 1.7 percentage point of the 6.3% growth, and that amounts to roughly 27% of the growth.
Thank you, Yusek Mapa and Sec Balisacan. Now we have an online question from Ms. Eileen Menches of Abante for Sec Balisacan. Almost 1 million jobs were lost in June in the agricultural sector. How would EO62 that slashed tariffs on rice help in increasing their income given that farm hands are not highly skilled and are not likely to find jobs in higher paying sectors? For Sec RC, thank you.
Okay. Uh, First, as we reported, the total output in the agri sector contracted in the second half, no? In the second quarter, especially in the rice sector, no? And that was primarily, again, as we noted, attributed to the El Nino, no? Okay. So the rice sector could have contracted, and therefore the employment reduced, notwithstanding the actions on the trade front, and the trade policy. Now, with respect to the intention of the 𝐒𝐫𝐞𝐫, please recall that it was partly a response to the evolving challenges, and in the case of agriculture, it's the contribution of food to the elevated inflation. As you will recall, over the last couple of months, it has been the food sector, and particularly the rice sector, that has contributed significantly to the uptick in inflation. Nonetheless, the intention of the 𝐒𝐫𝐶2 is to ensure that farmers will not be adversely impacted by this action, by ensuring that we are monitoring, periodically reviewing the sector every 4 months, and recommend to the government actions, including reversal of the tariff if that's required, to ensure that farm gate prices are not adversely affected. So that's we are working with the Department of Agriculture and establishing the processes for this regular review of the tariff, so that we can make the appropriate and timely interventions to ensure that our farmers are protected. In the meantime, the Department of Agriculture has been accelerating its assistance to affected sectors, particularly in view of the impact of the El Nino, and also in preparation for any potential damage brought about by the La Nina phenomenon. And so we are there. The overall intention of the 𝐒𝐫𝐶2 is to improve the competitiveness of our economy. It's not just the agriculture, but the entire economy, so that we can sustain this growth and take advantage of the opportunities in the external markets, particularly in our rapidly growing neighbors, and allowing us to achieve the single-digit poverty reduction that we have targeted by 2028.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Any questions from our on-site participants? Yes, Sir Jackie.
Hi, good morning, Sec and USEC. I want to ask about the household final expenditure, kung ano pong rate ngayon. And I remember the previous quarter, it was the lowest since 2010 minus pandemic. If it's kung nag-improve na po ba? Thank you.
Well, yeah, as the household final consumption expenditure continued to be a bit anemic. The growth is not as strong as one would expect. No? It was only 4.6%, and that was almost the same as it was in the first quarter. And in fact, it's slower than the comparable period last year, no? Which meant that the impact of the high inflation and the high interest rates that were implemented months earlier, quarters earlier, are now being felt, and are likely to continue to we likely to continue to feel that as we move toward the end. So still today, with that growth of that sector, that represents almost half of the growth of the economy, no? You know, what is encouraging is for me as an observer of the our performance is that the the other pillars of the economy, no? Particularly in this case, demand side, government, the government final consumption expenditure, and capital formation, and including the capital formation by the private sector, is pretty strong, and that is very encouraging. The net exports is a little disappointment because while the contribution of net exports in the first quarter was quite high, it went back to the negative territory this quarter. Hopefully, that's just a temporary occurrence, and we'll be able to strengthen as well that particular pillar, because we want all these pillars to be growing robustly, so that we can have a more resilient and sustainable growth. Sustainable growth.
Thank you very much, Sir Jackie. I think we saw Miss Abigail of Business World raise her hand, and then to be followed by Sir Mika Flores.
Hello po, good morning. Abby of Business World po. I would just like to ask po, how much should the economy grow in the next 2 quarters to sustain 6%, the lower end of the government's target, and or 7% yung higher end? And then for private consumption po, what are the government plans to pull off other segments on the economy, including household spending? Bakit po siya di na-grow, which I think was answered earlier. And then for Mr. Mapa po, to confirm, 6.4 po yung the fastest expansions of 6.3. Tama po ba?
Yeah, the second quarter is 6.3.
Yes po, it was the fastest expansion since the first quarter of 2023.
Yeah. The last one higher is Q1, just recent last year, 6.4.
Okay, thank you po.
Okay, with respect to the first question, how much the economy would have to grow? As I said, the first half is already 6%, no? And we're aiming for 6 to 7% for the year. So the second half would have to grow by 6% to at least 6% to fall within that range of the target, no? What do we need to do to spur growth in household spending? We will strive to ensure that we'll revert to the longer term decline in the inflation, because household consumption spending is inflation is very, very strong determinant of household spending, no? In addition, of course, we need to work harder to ensure that the labor market will continue to be robust, and more importantly, that higher quality jobs are generated at faster pace, and that will mean that we need to continue focusing on investments, no? And ensuring that investments grow rapidly, massively, to create those high quality jobs. We're encouraged by the fact that from the point of view of construction, that is doing very well, both in the public and in the private sector, no? So the other parts of the economy, other investing sectors of the economy, no? Particularly in manufacturing, would have to speed up.
Thank you, Secretary. Now, a question from Sir Mika of Reuters.
Hi, Secretary. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sir, if you, as you mentioned, no, household final consumption remains anemic, largely the same from the previous quarter. Do you expect that kind of level to stay at least in the second half, all things being equal? And given that, would you hope that the central bank would consider, easing its policy rates next week, given the level of consumption growth that we've seen at least in the first 2 quarters of the year?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of reasons why our expectation for the second quarter with respect to consumption spending, household consumption spending is first, as I said earlier, we expect inflation to come down. This spike that we uptick that we have seen in the second in July would go back to its longer term trajectory, moving us to the 2 to 4% target. So that's one. Two, we continue to expect a robust labor market. As you have seen, the June figures, labor market figures, show a quite robust labor market, and we expect to continue to see that for the rest of the year and in the coming year. Third, I think that we'll see even more local and national election spending as we move closer toward the end of the year, so that also will help. And fourth, this expectation that interest rates will go down before the year ends can spur spending, particularly investments. The private sector could have slowed down or postponed their investment plans because of in the recent past because of this investment high interest rate regime. But as their expectations about those interest rates improve, they may begin to go ahead with their with their projects, particularly those who are planning to expand. So I think that overall we expect the consumption spending, household consumption spending, to improve in the coming quarters.
Sir, on gross capital formation, because if you look the data from last year, we're coming from a low base, 0.7% growth
Indeed.
from the same period last year. And then if you go to the next quarter, Q3, it's minus 0.3% growth. In the first quarter, on the other hand, we grew by 0.5%, largely from a high base in the same period last year. Sir, could you elaborate on the seemingly erratic growth path of investment growth? And is the strong investment growth that we've seen in this quarter is largely driven by base effects because of the slow growth that we've seen in the same period last year?
Well, yeah, one could not dismiss that there is a base effect there, because indeed the 2023 second quarter for capital formation is only 0.7%. As of now, it's 11.5%. But of course, if you look at the seasonal adjusted growth rates quarter and quarter, you see also resurgence there. But I think that what we would need to look into is the more of the full year, because investments, especially in sectors that are highly capital intensive, sometimes they come in huge chunks. For example, Cebu Pacific and PAL for Turkish Airlines, those two can drive investments growth so rapidly, just by if they pursue with their investments, So it could be, but this could be one-time investment, right? So it's a bit ano tawag that, erratic, no? To look at it from quarter to quarter. But I think that because investments are long-term commitments, it's best to look at it, from a year to year, where you remove a some of these seasonality issues.
Sir, last question on my part. Sir, what would it take to have for the Philippines to have a steady level of investment growth, because this is also a determinant of future growth, and we have higher growth targets
Can
in
you
the
say that
succeeding
again?
years.
Sorry,
What would it take for us to have a steady level of gross capital formation, and not this erratic
Yeah.
growth path that we've seen
Yeah.
in
I think
in
that's a
recent
very good
quarters.
question. As a student of economic development, I think that one thing that I know very well is the um, the investment climate, the importance of the stability of that investment climate. And that's why I've been always harping that we need to have very predictable investment climate. We have to have to ensure that we are addressing this ease of doing business, and we don't change policies erratically, or in a way that it creates uncertainty in the market. Because as I said earlier, investment is a long-term commitment. If you have policies that could telescope that you have an uncertain investment environment, investors will not come to us. So that's the most important. And we are telegraphing to the rest of the world, and President has been telling the business community that the whole thrust of the socioeconomic transformation program is a clear, transparent, predictable policy environment. Yun. If there is any single determinant of investment, it is that the certainty of the policy and the investment environment. Because if they perceive us to be risky place to invest into, because we change the rules of the game anytime, then they will not. Even our local investors will leave us. They will go to open economies like our neighbors. That's why that's how critical it is that we project an image of stability with respect to the policy and climate, policy and investment climate.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Sa puntong ito ay huling 2 questions na lamang po ang aming maaring tanggapin. So sa mga katanungan po na hindi natin ma-accommodate ngayon, maaari niyo pong ipadala sa chat box po for our online participants, and para sa mga on-site participants po natin, maaari po kayong lumapit sa registration booth kung saan may PSA staff na magte-take note ng ating mga tanong. Ang mga sagot po ng resource persons po natin ay ipapadala na lamang po sa inyo via email. Now I see a raise of hand from Sir Andreo from Bloomberg.
To our speakers, maybe for USEC MAPA, I just want to get some flavor on the consumption, the household consumption data. So I see that it declined quarter on quarter, 0.1.
That's seasonally adjusted.
And then, so sir, meron ba kayong granular data on what sort of items consumers are holding off from buying?
There are mix siya, no? May mga items tayo na mataas at may items din na bumaba. Ang top 3 contributors natin on the positive side sa growth sa household final consumption expenditure. Una, miscellaneous goods and services. Ito ay tumaas ng mga 7.8%. Contribution niya 1.0 percentage point, no? Pangalawa, transport. 11.8% yung growth. The contribution is also 1.0 percentage point. And the third one is housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels. 6% yung kanyang growth. 0.9 percentage point ang contribution. Doon naman sa negative side, may bumaba tayo, clothing and footwear. Bumaba siya ng 4.8. So negative 4.8 yung growth rate niya. Contribution niya is minus 0.1 percentage points. So ito yung mga dynamics doon sa loob ng household final consumption expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One last question po from Ms. Bernadette Reyes of GMA 7.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bernadette Reyes from GMA Integrated News. Sec, if the households are being hindered to spend more because of the high inflation, then what could be the manifestations for families to say that indeed their lives are improving in tune with the GDP growth? Thank you po.
What can be the manifestation to show that lives are improving? Okay. All right. The Philippine Statistics Authority has released this family income expenditure survey. And if you examine closely the results of those surveys, what we find is that the incomes of the poorest members of our populations, for example, the 20% poorest of our population, have seen their incomes in real terms, increasing faster despite the inflation than the increases in the incomes of the richer members of our population. In percentages, in growth rates, not in absolute value. Obviously, even a 1% increase in the income of the very rich will mean millions. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking the percentages increases, because here we're talking about the economy growing at 6% in the first half of the year, and what we are saying is, given what we know about the economy right now, that growth is fairly inclusive. It benefits the poor. Now, a 6% growth of the economy, that's total, no? If you reduce the growth of the population, that's 1.7% or 1.5%. You're talking about 4.5% growth, assuming that growth is uniformly shared among us. Think about that. 4.5% increase in your income. Will you be able to buy a condo at that increase right away? Will you be able to buy a new laptop or a new cell phone with that increase in income? Obviously not, no? You need to sustain. But if that growth can be sustained for the next couple of years, then maybe, right? You're likely to be able to do. So in other words, there's no magic to enriching our lives. We have to be patient in pushing for sustained growth, sustained job generation, and not just thinking about, dreaming that in 1 year we'll be able to escape. If we are poor now, that in 1 year we're able to escape poverty, it doesn't happen that way. But if our policies are working, government policies are working, then more and more of this of our poor people will be able to migrate out of poverty. And that's what we want. That's why even as we are growing, as we expect to grow at 6 to 7% this year and 6.5 to 8% in 2025 to 2028, not all will be out of poverty. Single digit, ang target natin is from 15.5 now to about 9% of our population will poor. So marami pa rin poor doon. Because no country can eliminate poverty overnight. That's why sa atin is finding solutions, permanent solutions to the reduction of poverty. Hindi gaya yung nangyayari in the past na sige, bombahan natin yung ayuda so mag-reduce yung poverty. But kung wala na, ubos na yung ayuda, balik na naman ang poverty. That's not what we want. What we want is our permanent solutions to our poverty problem.
Thank you very much, Secretary Balisacan and Ms. Bernadette, for that question. So dito na po nagtatapos ang ating open forum. Nais po naming pasalamatan ang ating mga resource persons, NEDA Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan at PSA Undersecretary Claire Dennis S. Mapa. Maraming salamat din po sa iba pang mga opisyal ng NEDA at PSA na kasama natin ngayon. Gayon din po sa ating mga media partners na nakilahok sa press conference na ito ng Philippine Statistics Authority para sa 2024 second quarter performance of the Philippine economy. Nais ipabatid ng PSA na extended ang call for entries to the 35th National Statistics Month Media Awards. So this award aims to recognize the significant role and contribution of media in promoting and popularizing official statistical information by way of featuring data or statistics and other products and services from the Philippine statistical system in print, online, television, and radio online news service. So, ang categories po ng NSM Media Awards ay Best Statistical Reporting in Print or Online Media, Best Media Statistical Infographic, Best Statistical Reporting in TV Broadcast Media, Best Statistical Reporting in Radio Broadcast Media, and Best Media Advocate for Statistics. So, for more information, please visit our website, psa.gov.ph/NSM or email us at nsm@psa.gov.ph. Sana po ay patuloy nyo kaming suportahan. Maaari po ninyong bisitahin ang Philippine Statistics Authority website sa psa.gov.ph para sa karagdagang updates. Muli, ako po si 𝐒𝐿𝐴 mula sa PSA. Magandang umaga po.